Hello again. If we examine the history of the human race from the time that is that writing was developed and used to record events, we are able to gain some understanding of societies dating back around 5,000 years, the ancient Egyptians, Sumerians, and so on. As far back as we can look, society was ordered in a certain way. Men ran the political, civil, and military side of things, while women had a separate role in the home. This division of labour between the public sphere for men and the domestic sphere for women has been universal in all civilizations whose history we are able to study. There are, of course, trifling exceptions to this general rule. Perhaps this or that tribe of hunter gatherers in the Amazonian rainforest. But other than that, this is how the world has always been ordered and arranged. Until, that is, a few decades ago. How is it that all civilized societies of which we know ran according to such conventions? One explanation is that men brutally subjugated women and forced them to accept a life of servitude in the kitchen and bedroom, and only in recent years have they developed a powerful ideology which has enabled them first to resist and then fight back against and ultimately overthrow this patriarchal system. This ideology is, of course, feminism. The difficulty with this perspective is, of course, that there is no actual evidence for it. We must take the core beliefs of feminism on trust. When men and women are given a free choice in the matter, they do tend to drift into traditional roles, as long as there is no pressure on them to do otherwise. In modern Britain, for instance, both women and men are under enormous pressure, not only to pay lip service to the doctrine of feminism, but also actively to take steps to implement the tenets of the belief system. Sometimes these pressures are explicit and spelt out. There is, for example, a determination to ensure that at least half the directors of well-known companies are women. The same aim exists in politics and broadcasting, and also the professions such as architecture, engineering, and law. Then, too, there are subtler forces at work, the expectations of society. Many women would love nothing more than to have babies and stay at home to look after them until they start school, and then to be there waiting for them to come home from school in the afternoon. Two things militate against such a lifestyle. One of these is that women who wish to be homemakers, or housewives as they were once called, are made to feel like failures, as though choosing this path in life shows a lack of ambition, that if this is the best they can manage, then they cannot be very strong or determined people. Economic forces too work to compel mothers to place their babies in childcare facilities at the earliest opportunity. There's no reason at all to suppose that being raised in this way is better for children, and good reason to suppose that it is harmful to developing minds to be farmed out in this way to the care of strangers. This model of child rearing is, of course, a very new one. For 5,000 years or so, to our certain knowledge, children were raised in families with a mother and father taking care of them and teaching them what they needed to know. Over the last century or two, we have started experimenting with new ideas, such as women raising children without the involvement of the fathers, the so-called single mother households, and also with sending children to nurseries before they can walk or talk. It will take at least a century for the long-term effects of such innovations to be properly assessed. These methods of child rearing are a direct consequence of feminist ideology. The idea being that women can be freed from the need to care for their children so that they can become economically productive, and also to avoid the need for a man in the home by forming single mother households. It is interesting to observe that when given a completely free choice in terms of work and duties, women do tend to drift towards things like childcare and away from other things like digging ditches and ploughing. When the Israeli kibbutzim was set up in the early 20th century, the first was Degania in 1908, these settlers were determined that strict equality of the sexes would be the rule, and men took care of small children while women worked in the fields. There was no social pressure for either sex to conform to any stereotype, and yet, over the years, women naturally took over childcare, and men became the ones who harvested dates and ploughed the land. By the 1950s, the typical kibbutz had reverted to the most conventional and traditional distribution of labour along the lines of sex. Before anybody starts complaining that I'm being sexist, I will take leave to observe that none of this has anything to do with intelligence. I'm not suggesting for a moment that women are less intelligent than men, for this is manifestly untrue. What I am saying is that men and women are different and that they usually want different things. But because of feminism, we have all been persuaded that overturning that natural order is a wonderful ambition, and that anybody who thinks that women would rather be at home with their babies is a dyed-in-the-wool reactionary.